Hey there, it's Lara here with another Witchy Wednesday for the week of March 28th to April 4th, 2018. So if this is your first time here, welcome and thanks for stopping by. In these weekly videos, I talk about the pertinent astrology for the week and how it will impact us, as a collective, and talk a little bit about, where this might impact you if you know your own personal birth chart. And also, I pull a card at the end and talk about how that feeds into, the astrological energy that we're all feeling. So, if you're interested in getting a personal reading with me, you can just follow the links below here to my website and you can check out the different readings that I offer. And if you have any questions, please, by all means, reach out. And once again, thanks for being here. If you like the videos, I really appreciate it. If you leave a comment, if you subscribe to the channel, if you like it on YouTube, and if you share. So thanks again for being here, and let's get started with this reading for the week. So I always have some notes because I don't want to forget to tell you something. So if you see me looking over here, that's what I'm doing. So the big news this week really is the full moon that's going to happen on Saturday, on March 31st. And that's going to be a full moon in the sign of Libra. And it is actually, you may hear, some buzz about the blue moon, right? Because this is actually the second full moon that we've had in the month of March. And so that's why they call it a blue moon. So this full moon is likely going to feel kind of intense in the area of relationships in some way, because Libra is the sign that rules our relationships, right? Our sort of one-to-one relationships. So marriage partnerships or any sort of close partnerships that we have falls under the rulership of Libra. And so a full moon is always when the sun and the moon are opposite each other in the sky. So the opposite sign to Libra is Aries. So the sun is in Aries right now, right? It's Aries birthday season kind of thing. So the sun is in Aries and the moon is in Libra opposite the chart. And I'm going to show that to you here on the chart. I drew up this chart for Saturday, the full moon. And you can see that we have the sun here is in the sign of Aries. Okay, and right opposite the chart, there's the moon in the sign of Libra. So they're opposite each other. And you can see that we still have all this Aries energy happening right now, right? And quite a bit of energy happening in the sign of Capricorn, which is an earth sign, right? Aries is a fire sign. So this is kind of on, well, not kind of, it is on the axis of this, the self and the other. So Aries is all about the self. It's about I, me, mine. Libra is all about the other, right? Partnerships, relationships, other people in our lives. And so what this full moon is calling to our attention is the need for balance in relationships. And perhaps also, for getting some balance in sort of the give and take in our lives as well, right? So how much am I sort of putting out there and how much am I getting in return, in my partnerships and my relationships? Am I sort of being too self-centered, or am I being too much like a martyr, right? So it's a good time to kind of think about that. And at full moons are always quite emotional times. They tend to stir up our emotions. They bring things sort of to light, right? They illuminate things. And so we might have, some things sort of come to the surface, bubble to the surface, or we might become aware of things in that sort of area of our life, that focuses on the self versus the other. And so there are some other there's some other aspects happening in relation to the full moon that may make, you know, may make us a little bit frustrated. And so we have to be mindful of how we're communicating. It's important to speak our truth, to bring up if we feel like we have something to say in regards to a relationship or with a partner, that kind of thing. It's important that we do that, right? It's important to us, Aries, to myself, that we do that. But also it's important that we have some tact, and we don't sort of just, run off at the mouth and say things that we may later regret. Because what we have happening is the sun is going to bump up against Mercury, so it make a conjunction, it's called. And Mercury is all about our thinking and our communication, our intellect, all those mind things, right? And right now Mercury is in retrograde, which means that it appears to be moving backwards in the sky. And when that happens, there's a lot of different phenomena that are associated with Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde, like, I've mentioned before, things like having difficulty with electronics and that kind of thing. But also communications can be muddied or confusing. And it's kind of a time to move inwards and to reflect and review and revisit and to think before we act and all of those things, right? So there's that. And then there's also, we have the moon that is making what we call a square in the sky to Mars, which is conjunct Saturn right now in Capricorn. And so, this can kind of bring up those, as I mentioned, the frustration and the Mars and Saturn. It's kind of like Mars wants to like go and act and be fiery and just kind of follow its instincts. And Saturn's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's just take our time here and let's just settle down and let's be practical. And it tends to throw some obstacles in our way. And so that can feel a little bit frustrating. A couple of other things I want to mention. So we have the planet Venus, which is the planet that rules Libra, the sign of Libra. It is the planet associated with our closest relationships. It has to do with what we value. It has to do with, our security, how we our relationship to security, I guess you could say. It has to do with our resources. So money is included under that umbrella, right? And anything else that we consider a resource, right? And how we use those resources. So Venus is also all about sort of the five senses and anything that we experience through the five senses. And so Venus is moving on the 31st into the sign of Taurus. So Venus is also rules Taurus. So it rules Libra, it rules two signs. It rules Libra and it rules Taurus. So, and Taurus is very sort of practical and very security oriented. And, it likes stability and that kind of thing. It's a fixed sign. So it likes stability, doesn't like ups and downs so much in resources and in relationships and that kind of thing. And so, that will sort of, I think, buffer things a little bit for us, which is good news. And it's very comfortable in Taurus. And so that's, that's something to kind of look forward to for the next little while. And then the last thing I want to mention to you in terms of the astrology before I get to the card here is something that I think I'm going to do a whole separate video on because it's really important right now. And that is the fact that Chiron, which is a lesser known planet, is moving from Pisces into Aries. And so this is a significant shift for us, and we will feel this on a collective level, and we will feel it very much on an individual level as well, depending on where Chiron falls in our personal chart, right? And what house it falls. So as I've mentioned before, and as when I do readings for people, I always sort of give them an astrology 101 lesson at the beginning. These little pieces of the pie here are all different astrological houses. And so we can see, I will show you the symbol for Chiron. It looks like a key. It's right there. And it is in the sign of Pisces right now, but it's at the very end of Pisces and about to make its way into Aries. And that's going to happen on April 18th. And this is going to be significant, a significant shift for us. Chiron in astrology is known as the wounded healer. And so just sort of very briefly and surface level, it's the place in our chart where we experience our deepest woundings and where we can have a tendency to shoot ourselves in the foot too, right? It's kind of like we can choose to do the healing, we can choose to deal with our baggage, or we can choose not to. And the outcome, of our lives often depends on that choice that we make. And so Chiron shows us that area of our personal chart, our personal lives, where we have some pretty significant wounding that needs dealing with. And the awesome thing about it is when we choose to do that and we focus on that healing and we choose to go there, so to speak, that makes us much stronger in the end and much more resilient and much more able to help other people, particularly other people who have similar wounding as we do, right? And so Chiron is just making its way through the very last degrees of Pisces right now. And so there's sort of like some mopping up work that's happening in this area, right? In our healing in this area, wherever it falls in our personal chart for us. And then in April, when it moves into Aries, it's going to start this whole new cycle that will focus on, healing in a different area of our lives. And Chiron is funny in that it has a strange orbit. It's not regular. So it spends much less time in some signs than in others. It only spends about 18 months, for example, in Libra and Virgo, but it spends like 8 years in Pisces and Aries. And so I happen to have Chiron in Aries in my personal birth chart. So, I'm kind of hanging on to my hat here to see what's going to happen, but I don't think I don't think it can be any worse, kind of thing that then I feel prepared for it. Let's put it that way. And so this is something to be mindful of. And again, I think I'm going to do a whole other video sort of focused specifically on this, just because it is an important shift that's happening. And I'm contemplating maybe offering a specific reading that relates just to that Chiron piece in our chart. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so enough about that. Hopefully that helps you. Oh, I do want to mention just on the full moon as well. So if you know your chart and you know where Libra falls, then you will have a good idea of where this full moon will be impacting you personally the most, which house. So if it is in, for example, your seventh house of relationships, which is its home house, you may really be feeling this in terms of that relationship piece, really having some things come to the surface and having to work on finding some balance and some fairness and that kind of thing, right? In your relationships. If it falls in your second house, which is the house of resources and what you value and that kind of thing, it may be that you're working on sort of getting some balance in some kind of relationship that has to do with your resources and money. Perhaps it is tax season where I live, good times. So, those kinds of things. And that's just to give you kind of a simple example. But all right, so I decided to switch it up a bit this week. It was calling to me to take the card from a different deck than I have been for the last little while. And so I used Colette Reid's Wisdom of Avalon deck. I've been really focusing on the tarot mostly these days, but this was calling to me today. So I chose the card this week from that deck, and it's the King that came up, which is interesting because the King is all about issues of fairness, right? We were just talking about Libra. Libra is a sign all about fairness, right? Libra likes to have things fair, and it's also the King is also about sort of, wrapping up loose ends and acting with authority and ethics, getting things in order, taking affirmative action, all these things, which we've kind of been talking about, right? And so it's just a really good reminder to be proactive, be ethical in our dealings, be fair, right? And balanced in our approach, and act with authority. And authority doesn't mean, sometimes people confuse, having authority with being sort of overbearing or bossy or, aggressive or that kind of thing. And when you act with authority in your life, it doesn't mean that you have to be sort of a bully. It's not what it's about at all, right? It's authority over your own life. It's that autonomy, right? And then considering, again, with this Libra full moon, how that impacts or interacts with the others in your life. So that will be the focus. And interesting because we are going into Easter weekend here, right? And so there will probably be a lot of opportunity for interactions with people that are close to us. And so it's good to be mindful to take a step back, take a balanced approach, not get too hot-headed, say our piece, but do it in a balanced, fair way. Okay, so I hope that helps you navigate the week. And again, if you want to get a personal reading with me, then please follow the links below. I gave away a free reading to one of the YouTube subscribers a couple of weeks ago, and I plan on doing that again soon. So if you want to keep up to date here, then please do subscribe to the channel, and you can find out when that's happening next. Okay? Take care, everybody, and have a great Easter weekend if that's what you're celebrating. Okay? Take care.